asking people to spend money they cannot afford or do not have. You're not wasting money. You have banked cash. You are doing the work of a democracy. It is expensive but necessary, even noble work, educating the nation's children and its next generation of workers and citizens. So spend the money you need to do that well. I am the dreamer, but you are the ones who have the ability to say yes to education and to ending the achievement gap in this district. You're the ones. Do it, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. Next, Amelia Reich, also in relation to Seth Boyd.
Good evening. I live in Maplewood, and along with Tia, I'm the co-president of the PTA at Seth Boyden, and Tia spoke so eloquently. I'm really just here to say a couple of things. I didn't even write them out ahead of time, but this is so important to us. And, you know, you're allocating the money, and we have made requests for months now about how we feel that money can best be used to help the students at Seth Boyden. I would like, as Tia said, for you to focus on the achievement gap. I am sure I didn't follow everyone's campaign, but I suspect that along the way, everybody made commitments to close that achievement gap. I think it's a board policy, it's a board goal. Everybody talks about it. You have the power to allocate funds to help do that. I kind of feel like Seth Boyden is, I'm not ground zero, but you know, when our kids come into kindergarten, a lot of them have not been in structured preschools. They need more intervention early on than a lot of the other kids in this district, and we need resources for that, whether it's an extra kindergarten teacher, whether it's making sure that whatever reading intervention they need, they get. You know, that no one is taken away in the middle of the year. They get all the hours that they need, whatever those hours are. I would just ask that this budget make sure that that's something that's going to be possible at Seth Boyden. Let's see. You know, that's really it. I mean, Tia's laid out what we want. We feel like Seth Boyden is really in need, and I don't think it's a question of fairness. I think it's just a question of what is the right thing in light of the goals that this board has set for itself. And I think when this budget is complete and it's submitted, I would just ask that each of you ask yourselves, does this budget do what our goals have stated we want it to do? Does it help close the achievement gap? Have we met our commitment to this town and to these children?
Thank you, Ms. Reichenberg.
Thank you. And we are looking forward to March 21st, having a nice dialogue with the Seth Boyden family at Seth Boyden.
Yeah, there will be an open forum on that date. Next on our list is Mike Donahue in relation to special education.
Hi, Mike Donahue from Maplewood, from the CPAC. I'm going to be very brief. Like I said at the last meeting, we're very gratified to see that there are, for the first time in several years, there are no budgeted cuts to special education teachers, and we're very thrilled about that. I'm also very happy to see that you had the courage this year to use a little bit of the enrollment adjustment, which I know it's a difficult political decision to make, and it's definitely appreciated and appropriate. Those are terrific things, and I'm also want to make a quick comment about transparency in some of the materials that are coming out. I'm glad to hear it acknowledged this evening that it is difficult to look at this and really try to put together a full analyzed picture without having some of the key materials in advance of a public forum like this. So I'm glad to hear they're going to come out soon, and I'm glad to hear that Monday isn't necessarily the final say on the budget, and that there will be time to comment after that. Specifically, one request: I see that the head count schedules that have been prepared have had some significant formatting adjustments made to them this year. And it actually, in my mind, makes it more difficult from a special ed perspective to really tell what's going on. I see that now the special ed categories in that schedule are lumped together into a very big, broad category that includes everything from librarians to athletic supports. And it just makes it difficult to tell exactly what's being included in special ed, and without the cost center analysis, makes it impossible to assess whether recommendations that CPAC has made in the past with respect to resources dedicated to the interventions and things like that, whether those recommendations have been taken or not taken, or if there's any impact to them or not. Also, the combination of all special ed teachers into the two new lines of either self-contained or inclusion, I understand why that's being done. However, again, it's a very large number, and it's really hard to tell what's going on within the district with respect to special ed. I know that when you report general ed numbers, in front of elementary school, it's by grade, and it is certainly by elementary, middle school, and high school. And we'd like to see if those numbers could start getting reported out on that basis as well, because having 100 is great, but knowing whether they're moving up or down between levels is important as well. Again, I appreciate the Cheryl. I know you've been working hard on this stuff, and appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Okay, next is Alex Clyburn, Seth Boyd.
Hi, my name's Alex Clyburn. I live in Maplewood. I'm here to support Tia and Amelia and everyone at Seth Boyden. I'm a parent there. I actually brought my children, not because I wanted to, but and anyway, especially in light of what she said about the $10,000, I think it really speaks to the aspect I wanted to bring up. This very weekend, we're having our big fundraising event, and it's a silent auction at the Woodland. And I think it just completely clarifies what distinguishes Seth Boyden from so many of the other schools the elementary schools in our area, because we're not selling very many tickets. And our tickets are only $25 each, but it's just a different community. And that is the money that does things like the field trips and whatever those little extras are that should make our school equitable, equal. We're all one community, and that's our goal, and that's why we're all here in Maplewood. And I'm just here as a parent to support everything that they're trying to do and ask you guys to really consider it. Thank you.
I'm going to buy a ticket.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clyburn. Okay, next up, Steve Latz on the budget.
Steve Latz, Maplewood. First part of my remarks on behalf of my very small and still anonymous CBAC, and maybe you should just consider them from me. First, I want to agree with Mr. Donahue that there are increasing problems with the level of information and the timeliness of information available for members of the public and even for members of the board to reason about the budget in advance of its vote on the preliminary budget, which is coming up Monday night. Secondly, I want to disagree in part with the notion that there is a lot of flexibility after you adopt the preliminary budget. At that point, you set the high water mark in terms of the amount of money you can appropriate for the budget. And there are restrictions once it's approved by the county superintendent as to what kinds of changes can be made in the budget absent a re-review, and it's by no means guaranteed that that re-review will result in approval. So with that said, I want to stress that if members of the board want to reason about the priorities reflected in the budget, and I'm going to recommend that you do, that you have to do so tonight to give the administration time to potentially modify the preliminary budget in advance of Monday night. I want to note some things that we noted in our report last year when Ms. Baker and Beth Brock were on the CBAC and were willing to identify themselves. First, I think we need to get a handle on technology costs and understand the cost benefit, and I think in doing so, the board should take advantage of a lot of the recent educational literature which questions the rush to use of massive amounts of technology, in particular by Cuban and TIAC. Secondly, I want to note that the board adopted a number of new courses for Columbia High School over the last several months, and it is many of these one-off courses that sometimes end up with smaller enrollments that end up driving the staffing and therefore driving the cost of delivering a high school education. As the CBAC has recommended many times in the past, I think you need to look at the use of online courses, either in the form of one or another virtual high school or what is now increasingly available, which are quality college courses from the best universities in the country, Yale, Harvard, Stanford, Penn, which students can take for credit. And I think what you could do and save some stress in the schedule and ultimately save a little bit of staffing in the high school is to let students opt out of courses in the high school and recognize the credits they achieve by taking 4 credit. And I know it's hard for you to consider that credit from Yale or Stanford or Harvard or wherever is equal to credit from a Columbia High School course, but I urge you to consider that. For students whose families can't, and this saves people money when their kids go to college, for families that can't afford to pay the somewhat modest tuitions for these online courses, I would urge the board to consider stipending those students. Now I want to make a few comments about Seth Boyden. I want to agree with everything the prior speakers said, but point out that the class size policy, which this board adopted, I think, as recently as 2011, goes well beyond the notion of just keeping all section sizes under some class size maximum, which is 22, 22, 23, 24, 26, and 26. It, in fact, has lots of exceptional language, and I'm going to request that you have Ms. Schneider read numbers 1 through 4 under element and class size of the policy to remind yourselves of what it says, because you're not meeting this policy, in my view, with respect to the needs at Seth Boyden and Clinton, and that's having a huge impact on the ability of students to get back to grade level, which kind of puts the lie to the notion of a real commitment to closing the achievement gap. And finally, I would note that this obligation also exists in the School Funding Reform Act of 2008, which specifies a resourcing model, very clearly, hard numbers, which implies an average class size across all elementary grades of 19 students per class. So we're in nominal, every district in the state is in violation of that. We're in violation of that, but that's the resourcing level on a constitutional basis for providing a thorough and efficient education in elementary school.
Thank you, Mr. Latz. Okay, and now we have Paula Bethia.
It's that time of the year again, and I don't envy your job, and I know it's a hard job, and I'm thankless that it has to be done. My question is 2 things. One relates to the budget, and the other doesn't. One is that, is there a state mandate on delivering foreign language, world language, 3 through 5? Is there a mandate?
There's mention of it in the statute. I checked with the county superintendent, and there's nothing that states that we must have a particular program.
A particular program? Does that mean the world language? I'm not understanding.
That if we elect not to run it, we're not in violation of any statute.
Okay.
The state at one time had I don't know if I should call it a requirement. It was